I joined the CEAV in 2000. I had a bit of a checkered career because I started in Catholic schools, and when you stop to have children, if you're having family, you lost your position. And by the time I was ready to come back into schools, Jeff Kennett had started his agenda of contract teachers only. So I got onto the merry-go-round of contract teaching. But one of the positions that kept reappearing on these contracts was vetting school. So I ended up teaching some vet as well, and having the very first TAEs that weren't even the TAs. I can't remember what they were. But anyway, that sort of got me into, because I was coming in more as a vet teacher than a careers advisor in the early 2000s. The Catholic I went back to the Catholic Education Office because they actually had permanent positions. The state government didn't. For more than 10 years, you couldn't actually get a permanent position. So the Catholic schools, I'll give them their dues. They were a little bit more forward thinking in the early 2000s, and they offered scholarships to train career advisors. So that's how I got into careers, because my principal called me in and asked me, would you like to do this training in 2000? He said there's a scholarship available at RMIT and the Catholic Education Office is funding it. So I said yes. And off I went and got my qualification. And then I was fortunate because once I had the qualification, I was offered a full-time careers role. But it was careers vet. It was the combined role. Mm.
Yeah,
and I was in that. And in 2000, the practitioner that was in the school I was in. I was at Aquinas College. She said to me straight away, as soon as you get into this role, join the CEAB. It was like, you have to join, and if you don't join, you really don't, you have nothing to inform your practice. That's what, I remember her telling me that, Geraldine Holland. I wasn't elected onto the committee. The practitioner at Luther College, that was the independent representative for all independent schools, Gail Waldron, she sat on the committee of management. She was having a very tough year at her school, and she approached me at one of our regional meetings, because I used to go religiously to the regional meetings. I loved them, and they were really helpful, really, really helpful. I was in the Maroondah group.
Oh, we were Northwest.
Yeah. I was
in
had
Maroondah. Several iterations.
But, Bernadette loves a meeting. So not only did I go to Maroondah, I also went to Box Hill, because I figured out that the borders weren't quite right where Aquinas was sitting. So I went to Box Hill as well and got to know the Box Hill group, the Knox group. And from there, Gail, as I said, she was having a difficult year. She approached me and she said, do you think you can take my position on the CEAV Committee of Management? And I said, well, I'm not in a government school, because I was quite naive in those early days. And she said, no, it's cross-sectorial, all three, independent Catholic, and there was no Catholic school representation at that time. So she said, it's one meeting every 6 or 8 weeks. It's not too much work. And come on, Bernadette, you'll love it. You like a meeting. So I went, and she put me forward. And of course, the committee was short because they hadn't filled all the positions at that point. So I joined, and I must admit, at the very first time I went, I was very quiet. I just wanted to see the lay of the land. Naomi was there. She was very brilliant, the oration. Linda Barron was the executive officer at the time, and Linda was very, very good. Linda actually had a great way of pulling the committee all together. She had her finger on the pulse in terms of what was happening at the state level. She was very good. And then we just went from there. And so I've been involved. I was involved from 2000 until 2024 when I retired. So 24 years, I can say. Mm. But because I had the vet background and I had the careers background, I was sort of coming from both sections. And then Julie Ryan, I think, was president at the time in the early 2000s.
Yep.
She was on the Seeker Committee.
Yes, because that was the role that we'd done. Originally, Linda would do that, but we decided that it was more appropriate to have the president of the association for a period of time. And that was sort of rolling on in the background, doing bits and pieces that would come together. We made it quite clear that really it was just a coordinating body that would come together.
And I think Julie Ryan had been president on there for a while, so she didn't want to do it anymore, basically, and then threw it open to the committee, and the committee said, let's send Bernadette. And so I went up to the first meeting, one of the meetings in Sydney, and unbeknownst to me, I thought I will just sit on this committee and find out what's happening. It was a voting committee to elect the new executive, and Mike Jeeves from New South Wales, come on Bernadette, you're new, put your name down, come on. I said, these people don't know me, how are they going to vote for someone they don't know? And he said, come on, put your name down, we need you on the committee, we need Victoria there, we need Victoria on the committee. So
CAV was known as being people
forward
thinking. I mean,
we were.
You know, from the time we did, we've done so much that we were seen as a bit of a powerhouse because of what the work we'd done. We had the new careers practitioners conference. We had our conference that was getting people from interstate, and we were moving towards, you know, we had always had an international speaker, and that's again where we had big developed relationships with Tony Watts, Bill Law, people like that. So that's, you know, they came to our conferences.
They did, and it was sort of, it all sort of came at a juxtaposition around 2004 when the Liberal government at the time with Brendan Nelson, he was really pro-career development. And I think if we hadn't have had that minister, simply because it suited both his personal agenda but also his public agenda, I don't think we would have gotten as far as we have, because Brendan Nelson was personally invested in it. And so I put my name on the ballot paper. I had to stand up and give a speech, impromptu, told them what we were doing here in Victoria, and I got elected onto the national executive. And the rest is history. I was on there for 14, 15 years, eventually became the president of CECA as well. But I think that affiliation with CECA supported the growth of the association. One of the things it did give us was a framework for practice. We never had that. And we were able to, the CEAV and all the other member associations, but certainly CAA New South Wales and CEAV and the associations in Queensland, were able to distinguish career development was separate to the VET agenda. We didn't downgrade VET, we kept it there. In fact, we kept pushing for it to be core curriculum with its own resources and its own support people and its own qualified practitioners, but that career development had to be reserved for career education in schools. And I think we were very, very good at doing that. And part of what we did was certainly as representatives on CECA, Naomi came with me, and so did Leela. By then she'd joined the education department. We went to quite a number of national meetings in Canberra, in Sydney, to support the development of the agendas for qualifications.
And I think with CECA, the professional standards made a huge difference, and that was something that we'd been working towards with taking up the qualification and exploring ways of delivering that through cooperation with other organisations, which again didn't quite work, and eventually coming to the conclusion that we should deliver it ourselves. And I think the other thing that, of course, we had well in train was the going into schools and auditing and the audit process, which unfortunately CECA never quite took up. No. But that was quite a strong process of getting practitioners to see what could be done in schools. And so that framework that we developed, it bounced around for a while. Other organisations took it up. For one point, Dusseldorf was running it, even though it was developed through us. Because it was done with VET money, we tended not to. So there are some issues with it, with the old framework that we've developed. But
it's still a good one.
It's still valid, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
But my role was very much, I was still in schools from 2000 to 2008 before I joined the association as the executive officer, and I joined halfway through 2008. And then from there, I was executive officer right up until the end of 2022.